Good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for our virtual event this evening with Brittany Ackerman in conversation with Gina Nutt discussing Brittany's. We're so excited and grateful that our bookstore can continue to bring authors and their works to our community during this time. We'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, and you can learn more about them on our website, booksoup.com, as well as our social media at BookSoup. Our next event is tomorrow, June 17th, with Kit Shapiro in conversation with Jessica Case, discussing Eartha and Kit, a daughter's love story in black and white. To submit a question during the event, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. If you see a question on the list that you'd like our speakers to answer, please click the like button. We'll try to answer as many questions as time will allow. Please do not use the sidebar chat to ask a question. Support our bookstore and our authors and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click the green purchase button that reads The Brittany's directly below the viewer screen. The link will redirect you to our website where you can continue your checkout process. We're selling digital audiobooks and ebooks through Libro.fm and Kobo for those who are interested. Now a little more about Brittany. Brittany is a graduate of the Florida Atlantic University's Master of Fine Arts program in creative writing. Since graduation, she's completed a residency at the Wellstone Center in the Redwoods and has attended the Mont Blanc workshop in Chamonix, France, under the instruction of Alan Heathcock. She's also attended the Writers by Writers Methau Valley workshop under the leadership of Ross Gay. Her first collection of essays and winner of the 2016 Nonfiction Award, The Perpetual Motion Machine, was published with Red Hen Press in 2018. Now a little bit more about Gina. Gina is the author of the poetry collection Wilderness Champion. She earned her MFA from Syracuse University. Her writing has appeared in Cosmonauts Avenue, Joyland, Ninth Letter, and other publications. She's the author of the book Night Rooms. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over to Brittany and Gina. Enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, happy book launch.
Thank you.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for coming and tuning in. It's been an exciting week. And yeah, I'm just going to start by reading a little excerpt of the book, and then we will jump into our chat. So I'm reading from chapter 11. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of the book. So spoilers ahead, but you know, that's what you get. So chapter 11. I get a note in my locker from Stephen Fraber. He's in my grade, but is unpopular. Naturally, there are certain kids at school who are favored. They are usually the richer kids, the kids who have famous aunts or uncles, the kids who fly to Turks and Caicos in private jets, the kids who spend summers in Europe. But sometimes they are the troublemakers. The kids who maybe don't have as much money, but what they lack in funds, they make up for in mischief. They talk back to teachers and sell weed on campus. They wear their uniforms however they want to, sagging their pants or rolling up their pleated skirts until you can see their underwear from behind. Or maybe they don't become known for something that happened, or maybe they become known for something that happened to them at school, like when Marissa Katz got caught cheating on her Spanish test. Her teacher, Senora Dolores, caught her and lifted up her skirt in front of the whole class to prove she had written the answers on her thighs, which she had. But Senora Dolores got fired, and Marissa Katz was only given a warning. There are many levels of fame one can achieve at our school. Even being a Brittany counts toward boosting our reputations. Stephen Fraber plays soccer, which works in his favor. The other girls have clearly disapproved of my choices in love interests. He has a few friends who are less than desirable, like Eddie Sullivan and Jerry Ferguson, who are perpetually getting busted in class for playing snood or watching porn on their laptops. They're pretty goofy, but I don't care, because there's something about Stephen that interests me. I've decided I'm in a phase where I don't care what anyone else thinks of me except my parents, who are basically in charge of me. I walk through the halls at school with a different kind of stride. I'm learning not to give a shit, as they say. The note asks me if I want to go to the movies. Stephen requests my home phone number and leaves his locker number on the bottom of the note. I write down my number and slip the note back during fifth hour, right after lunch. I tell him to call me tonight. It's cold for January, still cold enough to wear my sweatshirt all the way through the school day. It's my brother's, actually, one of his old ones that I borrowed and never gave back. A navy blue crew neck with a white and gold eagle emblem on the chest, our school's mascot. The Eagles. It always makes me think of that Eagles song, New Kid in Town. My dad used to play that song in the car when we were younger. I liked how it was about a new person in a new town, and everybody liked him, just for doing nothing, it seemed. Maybe I didn't fully understand, but it made me feel good to know that guy had a good life. And I imagined myself in the song, walking around the school like I owned the place, being popular, being liked by everyone, having it be that easy. I haven't really been hanging out with around the girls that much, but I noticed Jensen is getting closer with Kenzie. They hang out a lot, and I don't see why Kenzie even likes her. Kenzie likes guys. And Jensen only likes weirdos like Joshua Sherman and teachers. I'm supposed to have my annual birthday sleepover with all the girls this weekend, but I don't think I'll invite the usual people. Things are kind of off now, and I don't want to further upset the generalized chaos between 15-year-olds. Last year, my sleepover sucked anyway. We watched a movie called But I'm a Cheerleader, which ended up being about a girl who figures out she's a lesbian instead of what we actually thought it would be about, cheerleaders. The girl was a cheerleader, but that wasn't what the movie was about. None of us were even cheerleaders, but we liked the idea of girls who were. No one asked about the sleepover. It's been a week since the mess of my actual birthday, and I'm sure they all think I'm doing nothing to celebrate. It's sort of unspoken that I'm mad at everyone, so when I call Rosenberg to invite her over on Saturday, she's pleasantly surprised. I thought you weren't going to do anything, she says. I didn't want to, but it's my birthday, and I know the day's already passed, but I think I should celebrate the big 1-5, you know? Who else is coming, she asks, and I hear one of her dogs barking in the background. I'm only inviting you and Tomassi. Is Jensen on your shit list? I just want to keep it small. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad she's not invited. I can't stand the bitch, but she's like your best friend. She's not invited. I just want a calm night, no drama. Gotcha. So what else is new? Not much. I don't tell Rosenberg about Steven. I'm not close enough to anyone right now to divulge that kind of information. I want to tell Rosenberg that I am mad at Jensen, that it did hurt my feelings when she not only forgot my birthday, but told me it was downright stupid. I want to tell someone everything that happened. But if I say it out loud, then it'll be true. Jensen will be a bad friend. Rosenberg tells me about this kid, Milo Vance, who lives in her neighborhood. He's a sophomore, but his brother Mitchell is in our grade. There's a whole clan of them, descending in age, but Milo is for sure the most popular. They talked at lunch one day or something, and now they're friends. Rosenberg has no fear, which is why I really like having her as a friend. She'll talk to any guy, no matter what her hair or makeup look like, no matter what stupid outfit she's wearing, and they seem to like her. She's great at befriending the older crowd and gets invited to a lot of parties she's not even allowed to go to. Her parents are definitely the strictest of all the parents in our group, but somehow they let her drive their golf cart around the neighborhood. And unbeknownst to them, she rides over to flirt with boys in various houses. They want us to come over one night, Rosenberg says. For what? Like to hang out? It's amazing to me how much Rosenberg has changed. When I first knew her in middle school, she had this thing where every time a new member of our group went over to her house, they had to jump in the pool with all their clothes on to prove their friendship to her. I remember hearing about this and not believing it or understanding it. But when my day finally came and my parents drove me over to Rosenberg's house for our first sleepover, she took me out to the pool on her house tour. First, I saw her bedroom, the closed door to her older sister's bedroom, her movie room, the kitchen with the marble island that looked exactly like my family's kitchen, her parents' master bedroom, her garage with a second fridge stocked with juice and Gatorade, a backup generator for hurricanes, her parents' black Range Rover, her 2 dogs, 3 cats, 1 bird, and then finally her backyard. The pool was not heated and had a few straggling leaves in it from the last rain. It was designed with 2 circles that flowered out from one larger circle, almost like Mickey Mouse's famous ears. I remember I had straightened my hair that day and didn't really want to submerge to appease Rosenberg. But as we stood there at the edge of the pool, she made me raise my right hand and solemnly swear that I would always be her best friend, forever and ever, no matter what. She had a towel ready and waiting on a lounge chair for me after my plunge. She stood with her arms crossed, smiling, in her glasses that had a blue tint in the lens, making her look a lot younger than she was. And I jumped, because that's what you do when you want to be someone's friend, someone like Rosenberg. Okay, I say now, I'm in. Yeah.
Thank you, Brittany. Oh, that was fantastic. I love that you read that passage because I feel like it covers so many of the things that I love about the book, which part of them, part of it is feeling teenhood and coming of age and friendships conjured in such a way that's just very sensory. And yeah, it's a total nostalgia fest as a reader and as someone who lived through the early aughts. So so I wonder, can we start here? I'm thinking about the way the narrator navigates friendships and crushes while juggling rules and expectations and hierarchies that govern those connections. Like you have to jump in Rosenberg's pool and pledge your friendship. There's something kind of magical about it, right? Those connections and the things we do for friends. But I'm wondering, can we start and delve into the tension between the magic of teen girlhood and those friendships and crushes and the rigid social codes that the book explores?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially what you just said about like the hierarchies of friendships. I mean, like the narrator and Jensen, they met first, like they were the first Brittany's in the group. And then another one came in another year, and then they slowly built to the 5 Brittany's. And so there was kind of that expectation that, they were always going to be friends. Like there was nothing that was going to come between those two characters. And, they were going to be together forever. And they were kind of at like the top of the chain because they were, the OG Brittany's, but I think also with like in the beginning, there's a whole section about magic and about like this mind power kind of thing that they think they have. And I think it's all just like the magic of being a girl and growing up and, seeing like the movies that we used to watch. And I don't know why, but like I'm thinking of like Hocus Pocus. And like I think like we always like wanted to be witches and we wanted to have these powers and be like fairies or, whatever, you want to call it. And we wanted that so badly. And so we kind of made a home for it, like in our relationships. But with that, like you said, comes the kind of expectations that we had of our friends. And even with the scene I just read with the sleepover, it's like, well, wait, you're not going to invite her? Like, she's your best friend. Like, I know we're kind of on the outs, but that's going to cause problems if you don't do that. And I remember just the chaos and like how horrible it felt for me, like if I didn't get invited to something of a good friends, and if you were kind of on the outs with someone, or you could sense that 2 people were kind of getting closer and you were kind of left out of that situation. And yeah, it just didn't feel good. It felt like, I mean, now we have that phrase FOMO and we know what that is. And we like have to find it. But I think back then we just didn't know. And it's like, we didn't have Instagram where we could just see what people were doing, or we weren't really involved in everyone's lives in that kind of a way. This is like pre-Facebook, pre-social media, pre-TikTok or whatever. And we just had to guess. And it was like that mystery of what's happening and what is everyone doing? And, is he going to call? Is she going to be mad? Are they mad at me? And I think that's why in the freedom of the fiction of this novel, I got a lot out of, the thing I just read of like, I'm in a phase where I don't care. Like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I'm going to walk around the school and just, but like, I never really had that as me. Like, I'm giving my character that, but yeah, I feel like it's just something that we, as girls, like we try to manifest that in our relationship. Like we want to see the things that we've seen on screen and we want to feel those bonds with people. And you want to think like, if I grab someone's hand, I can make a Ferris wheel stop, and I can get an A on this test, and all of those things. And based on something, a close relationship that I had with somebody like that, where we felt like we had these magic powers and stuff. But yeah, in the novel, just able to kind of construct it more and give it that other life of its own.
Well, and I think you really run with something that's really specific to that time, is the emotional intensity. Like, you really get into, I think, both ends of emotional intensity, right? So there's this sense where everything is magic and we love our friends, and the narrator really wants those connections. But then there are moments where rage comes out, and there are just these total blowout fights, which I think a lot of us might remember fantasizing about. And I'm just wondering, when you were writing your characters, were you thinking about vulnerability, and in what ways were you considering it? Is it a strength to your characters? Is being able to be sad and being able to be angry at your friend and tell them you're angry, furious?
Mm-hmm.
How did that find its way into the novel and guide the book?
Yeah, I mean, in my own life, I was always afraid of people being mad at me, and I wanted everything just to be like good all the time. Like, if I sensed that I did something wrong, I just felt really bad about it. And so I think in the novel, I wanted that same sense for the narrator, because the narrator is kind of the avatar for me. But a highly fictionalized version, a much cooler version, if I do say so myself. But I wanted her to have a moment finally where she could stand up for herself, because I truly never had that. Like, I had people say kind of things, mean things to me, and stand up and, say that. But I never had that moment for myself. And I think it felt really freeing to do that in the novel, and to have that, the narrator finally, like, it takes a while, it's a slow burn until she finally, spoiler, does say, I won't say what, but she does say something, and then continues to feel bad about it. I feel like, because in high school especially, everything just feels so big and so important, and it's like, it's so dramatic. You think that every moment is just the most important thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, that friendship is over forever, or that person's never going to talk to me again, or I'm just out of this group now. And it's like, it's not how it was. And I wanted to create that in the book too, that even though they're on the outs with certain people, it's like, oh well, but still, aren't you going to invite her to the birthday? And like, it's a birthday, like, get over it. And just making my narrator more daring and more bold and more able to kind of say and even just think the things that I wish I could have at the time, because like I said, I was really shy. I had like that quiet anxiety in me just like all the time, and I didn't want to make anybody mad. And it's something I've taken into adulthood too. Like, I just kind of want to be at peace with everybody and just, people please. And I was joking with a friend about that. I saw a meme about that this morning. It was like, when I'm done with people pleasing, it's over for you bitches. And then it was like, but if that's okay with everyone, is it okay? Is it okay? And it's so true. It's like, I want to be that way. And I want to be the girl that walks through the halls and is like, screw everyone. Like, I'm a Brittany, but, I still have that fear, and I think it's nice to see that character having a moment where she can be that way, though.
I loved that. I loved the moments, not only where she was able to say something and be angry at her friends vocally, but also when she was just really sad or fighting with her mom or confused about a crush. It just really resonated with me, and I think it's something that a lot of other folks are going to feel too as they read the book. I loved too in the passage you read tonight the bit about I need to celebrate the big 1-5. Like, I think I actually laughed when I read that, because it was just like, oh my, it's totally valid. Like, it seems like the biggest, most important thing in the world. And also it's like, oh, to be 15 again.
Yeah.
At that birthday sleepover, the narrator and her friend dance for some boys over webcam. So here comes a spoiler. And that brought back like all those sleepover memories, like AIM, webcams, away messages, talk about more like are people mad at me feelings, all the things of early 2000s teenhood and the internet.
Yeah.
Those like glittery dolls, I don't know if you ever made those, like the websites where you can make doll. It's something that Brittany's unwraps, like this duality that parallels being a teenage girl, where it's kind of like there's a double standard, right? So they're still in the real world, but they're also online. Being teenage girls, they have these double standards to live up to. So can we delve into this sense of doubleness between the internet and real life in the early aughts, and how you pulled that in for the characters? Is there like unraveling that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, the dolls thing, I just did a bunch of research on that game. I don't know what you want to call it, that application or that game. It's called The Palace, because it was where you would like make an avatar and then like go into a chat room and be like, this is me. And it's like, it's like a glittery girl, yeah. So definitely familiar with that, because I just wrote an essay about it. Hopefully that will be out sometime soon, about just like the Sims and sex online and all of that crazy stuff. But I think in terms of the novel, especially with like the webcam stuff, and so Rosenberg's character is the one that has a webcam, and whenever they go to her house, like they're able to use the webcam to, video chat with boys, or sometimes like they can only see the girls, and then like we wouldn't be able to see them. And as I just read in that passage, like she's the friend that out of all of them is like the most bold. Like she'll talk to any boy. She doesn't, if we're like, that guy's cute, it's like she's the one that's going to go up to him, and she has no fear, no shame, no nothing. Obviously, my character does not have that and is more shy. And I think she's trying to kind of take a page out of her book and learn to be a little bit like that. And I think like what you were asking with the internet and the way that we used it in the early aughts, it kind of let us have more exploration and kind of explore our sexuality and our sexual identity without having to commit to a real life version of that. And I know that still exists online today, and like people have personas online, and there's like catfishing and all of that. But I think for that specific time, like in the early aughts, when people weren't so much like forming these like lifelong relationships online, and it wasn't in that, it was more just like a quick interaction. It would be like ASL, age, sex, location, like where are you, like what would you do to me, like what would I do to you? And it's like that was my first sexual encounter, was online. And like at night when my parents were asleep and I went on AOL, and going into the chat rooms there's husband appearance, going into the chat rooms, and that was my like first time really. It was just to have that experience online, and a part of it was freeing, because it didn't actually have to happen to my body. Like I didn't technically lose my virginity, but I still was able to learn about it. It's like, it was almost like a tool to kind of educate the self, but it was also kind of weird because it's not really happening. And I don't know that it actually prepared me for like a real sexual experience, later on. So there definitely, like you said, there's that doubleness. It's like, maybe you were able to be bold online and like have cyber sex, if anyone remembers that. But you weren't going to do the real thing in real life because maybe you weren't ready yet, or maybe you were too young or felt too young, or, whatever it was, but you felt that you were ready, online, or you wanted to at least like get a run, like a virtual experience of it. And I think just like the duality that it caused me personally was, it just was a little confusing, because then I remember like family vacations that I would go on, and I was always trying to like meet boys and like, that I would know for like a week and then never see again, and it in a way it made me more bold to like, I'm going to talk to that kid, that other 14-year-old kid that's like also on vacation with his family. But it made me, it didn't make me like more ready to actually have a sexual interaction or anything like that. Maybe it made me like mentally think I was there, but I think there is still kind of a split.
Yeah, I think too, like, I remember everything you're saying is so familiar. But I remember there almost being a sense of freedom, right?
Yeah.
Like you were not latched into, I feel a sense now that everything is kind of, it accumulates, and whoever we present online is this just like constant accumulation of everything we've ever shared online. Unless we like exhume the archive. So there was almost like a kind of freedom in those temporary encounters. And also because it was so new, the internet was so new, and AIM and webcam and all that was so new. There was a sense of, there was novelty, but there was also freedom in that. And I was wondering if we could dive in deeper on freedom, because earlier in the book you write, we've got that small freedom and we're riding with it until we both inevitably get into trouble. And so in that moment, the narrator and another Brittany are going to get hair dye, to dye their hair at home, which is another fun early aughts experience, probably a now experience, especially in the last year. I'm sure a lot of not teens have had that experience. But throughout the book, the characters encounter a range of experiences and stakes. So could you talk about growing up as a time of calibrating and recalibrating freedom and consequences, and how that plays out for your, or at least how that moves the narrative in your book?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the freedom and the way that the girls kind of push the envelope kind of start out small and then get bigger and bigger throughout the book. Like there's, the dyeing of the hair, there's the piercing of the ears, and then there's like little white lies that will be told to parents. There's actually hooking up with boys for the first time, sneaking out, there's drinking, there's, the smoking weed thing. They like really want to smoke weed for the first time. These things kind of unravel and kind of, it's almost like a video game where you're like going the next level, it's like, okay, we completed this. Like we dyed our hair, we got away with it. What can we get away with next? And I love that you bring up the question of freedom. And when I first workshopped parts of this book, that was a big question. It was like, what are the consequences for these girls? Because it kind of seems like there's no consequence, because maybe they're, the mom gets mad, or maybe they say like, you can't go out for one night, but there's no real punishment. And I think a lot of that either took form in the shape of guilt, like at least for my character, like she carries around a lot of guilt. Like if she says something mean to her mom, an hour later, she'll be like really feeling bad about it, and want to just like make up, or these, in other instances, it's like she'll be ready to do something, but then is like, wait, am I actually ready to do this? Like they get pretty close at one point to finally smoking weed. And then they're like, wait, do we really want to do this? Like, it's right outside the door. Like, are we actually ready? Like, is this really happening? I mean, at that time too, like my parents were pretty strict, and that kind of mirrors the narrator's parents in the book. And then, like I said, there's the character of Rosenberg, and her parents are kind of the most strict, but even so, it's like, once they go to sleep, she takes out the golf cart, and it's like, that's like, you're driving, you're on, even though it's in a neighborhood, it's a gated community, but it's like, you're on the road, like you can feel the wind in your hair, and, you're going to a boy's house in the neighborhood. It's like these crazy things that when I was just, at my house sitting in my bedroom, it's like, I wouldn't dream of that. But then you go to another person's house and you have this other kind of freedom that you've like never gotten to experience. Like my freedom up until then had been, like the dyeing hair and piercing ears, like trying to get away with wearing low-rise jeans or, whatever. And then you would go to other kids' houses and experience like drinking for the first time, or getting to wear your older sister's clothes and like steal her bras, or, whatever you did. And, different kinds of freedom, and just like taking that and really grabbing it and latching onto it, and just being obsessed with like finding any small freedom that you could have that didn't look like the freedom that you would maybe have perceived at your own house. Like my best friend growing up loved coming over to my house because, her parents worked all the time, and And my mom would like cook us breakfast in the morning and could like drive us around to places. And I wanted to get away from it. Like, I was like, I don't want my mom like, over my shoulder the whole time. And, and so I was like, but don't you want to go to your house where there are no parents? And so I think a lot of the freedom was like in the eye of the beholder too. And like where we would place value on certain relationships. And Rosenberg, it's like, even though during the day, like I said, her parents are, making her take all these vitamins and like, she's very regimented in some ways. She's got that golf cart and we all want to go on it. And, and I did have a friend that had a golf cart growing up, and like, it was a thing. Like, we definitely wanted to go to her house to ride that golf cart. It was so fun and crazy. And, I remember too, like this particular friend, she would drive really, really, really fast in the golf cart, and it terrified me. But she would make us, there was a song at the time, it was like a rap song, and there was a line in it that was like, I ain't ever scared. And she would make us like scream that. This is the same friend that made us jump in the pool, but she would make us scream that and like pretend that we weren't scared. And I was just like, but that's another thing. It's like a ritual. It's like the hierarchy of friendship. And I was scared out of my mind on that golf cart. But I still wanted to go. Like, I still wanted to ride in the golf cart and pretend I wasn't scared, but I was terrified.
But that's kind of, I think that's kind of part of being a teenager. And, that time of, our lives, a lot of it is based on how afraid am I? How much can I get into this or not? And when do I almost smoke weed? When do I not smoke weed? And I love what you said about the video game, right? Like, it's a quest video game, and then there are all these little like, I just think of like, I don't know, a character like punching and getting coins or something overhead, dyed the hair, pierced the ears, fought with mom, said sorry to mom, all those little things. And I think too, another way that I felt like consequences manifested throughout the book were these, I'm not going to spoil anything, but these flash forwards that appear throughout the book. They have kind of like a yearbook retrospective effect. And so maybe this is backtracking a little bit, but I was wondering if you could talk about these flash forwards, which when they do appear throughout the book, they kind of foretell how the future looks for the character being discussed. So maybe it's a classmate or a friend. But at what part of the process did you start to pull those in? Were they part of your initial vision, or did they come in later?
Yeah, so they weren't in the initial draft at all. And then what kind of happened was, as I was revising, I had one at the very end about the narrator and Jensen, and it was a flash forward involving like kind of what happened to them. And I don't even know like why I wrote it. Like, I was kind of trying to be like, well, our reader's going to want to know like every single little thing that happens to them like later on in life, or is it better to just leave it with that final scene? And my editor, Anna, hi Anna, I love you. She was kind of the one that helped me figure out, well, what if we did, this throughout, what if we get to see little bits and pieces, some of them longer, maybe some of them are just a line, because that's kind of true to life. Like, sometimes, especially now with social media, you can go on and see that person had 3 babies, like this person lives in another country now. Like, you can kind of get snippets of people's lives, and then sometimes you can get the whole narrative. Sometimes you do reconnect with people, and get more of their story. So I really liked that idea because I thought that it felt very true to a narrator that is looking back at all of these experiences, being like, well, this is what I know about this person now, or this is what I'm kind of imagining this person is like. And, there's one that's about the Max character, and she's like, I wonder if his wife knows this, or if his wife ever thinks about this. And so a lot of it's imagining, and Because I think that we do that with people where, you know, even if we see a post about somebody, we still don't really know their whole inner life and can never know that. And I think because the narrator of the book is already so introspective and already so like kind of Harriet the Spy, like judging everybody all the time, it felt really good to have those moments. It kind of feels like poetic justice in moments too, especially when there's a character that was like really mean to her, or, you know, and you got to find out that like something kind of maybe not great happened to them, or if it was somebody that like helped them through along the way, like, you know, the Amber character, you get to see that, you know, they end up with, you know, a good life and they're happy. So it felt, like I said, like a poetic justice, and it just kind of felt right. And I loved that suggestion, and we kind of like ran with it, and kind of ended up taking out the initial one about Jensen's character and, you know, the kind of tying a bow on their friendship, because, you know, she does get a little tiny flash forward, but it doesn't explain everything. And it doesn't jump ahead too much to, you know, are they still friends? Do they talk? Do they even know each other anymore? You know, what happened? Because I think I wanted to also, and the consensus with like, you know, my editing team was like, this is the kind of, you know, let's leave it open. Like, let's let people, you know, imagine for themselves and also put their own situations into it. And like, what about you and your best friend growing up? Like, are you still friends with them? Was that kind of just in your life and it kind of came and went? Do you just stalk them on Instagram? You know, like, what does that relationship look like now for you?
That relationship for me is not there.
Yeah. And I'm not actually asking. I mean, it's more of a, you know,
it's just like
you're like, well, I'm thinking about it now, but it's a good rhetorical question, you know, for people to think about who that person was for them in their lives, or if they're dealing with something like that now, you know.
Yeah. I also think too, they're kind of a reflection of like the quieter moments of the book. For me, that's where I felt a chance to kind of slow down, because I do feel like you capture like a lot of the energy of being 15 and how not only urgent everything is, but just how chaotic. And I liked how you were able to really seamlessly move between the, you know, high voltage moments and those slower, more reflective moments. I loved, there was one scene where the narrator she like goes outside at a party and she sees all these couples like looking at trees and the sky. And it's just, there's this really tender, like observation that's just very perceptive and sweet. Even though she's not having a good night at that party. And I'm thinking a lot about pace. I'm thinking a lot about like, how do you approach those moments where, you know, you're really quiet and the narrator's more reflective versus a scene where the narrator and her mother are fighting and then immediately saying sorry. How do you juggle that? You know, those highs and lows in terms of momentum.
I definitely live inside my head. I mean, this is like something I talk about in therapy. And so it's kind of constant for me just as a person. Like I'm always, I'm happy, I'm sad. Like this feels like everything. It feels like nothing. And I really did want to capture that, like, you know, anxiety of the narrator. And this is still at this point in her life, it's undiagnosed anxiety. It's just like, she doesn't really know what it is. But I think that that's what anxiety does to a person. It like puts a big magnifying glass on everything and it makes everything feel really big, even like, you know, piercing your ears or like watching someone look at a tree. You're just like, what are they thinking? And like, are they mad at me? It's like everything just gets magnified. But I think also a lot of it is, this is like kind of a lame answer, but it's like the magic of writing, and also like the magic of writing fiction is that, like, even with the part that I read, it's like this character is like, well, it's January and it's cold and I'm wearing my brother's sweatshirt and it looks like this and it reminds me of this song. And I know that you love Joanne Beard, and she talks about this a lot, about just letting yourself go, like let your mind go and let your mind connect memory to memory and be tactile and be visceral and just let the images come, and the writing will kind of sort itself out for you. And you'll know when to go, okay, well, I'm talking about this sweatshirt, I'm talking about the weather, and I'm talking about this song. Oh, wait, we got to get back to the scene, and like when to kind of hop back into that. But I think that, yeah, the beauty of it is that, like, as a person that, like, proud anxiety person here, like, that definitely helps as a writer, to like over magnify the moments. And then, in the editing, we can cut things down, we can, work together on that. But I think that it really allowed me to go there. And I think it is true to the experience of, of being a young girl. I mean, I've talked a lot about, my husband was one of the first people to read, the full manuscript. And, and he thought it was really interesting. Like, wow, I really didn't know like what girls were thinking at that age. And he's like, I know what boys were thinking at that age. And I know the anxiety that I felt around certain situations, but it's different, it's different. And I think that that's something that I definitely really wanted to try to capture in the book, was what it's really like what is actually really going through your head, or at least, a person with anxiety, and feeling every feeling and having it just feel like a mountain, every time you get a feeling that arises. And I tried to really like stay in the moment as long as I could with everything and let my brain go where it wanted to go, and then just, write it out all the way through.
Yeah, because I think what you're saying is like a lot of that stuff can be handled once you just let yourself go and you have a draft, is a lot of that stuff can be handled in post-production, right? In revision, in editing. And that you can spend forever on, right? It just getting it out is kind of the initial hurdle, if even that, because sometimes it's like a total like pleasure and a total joy to like just stay with your mind and linger on the images.
Yeah.
I was wondering too, because there are a lot of references to a lot of like early aughts, like Snood, But I'm a Cheerleader. Those were in Tonight's, but there were also like food flavored lip gloss, purses, like specific kinds of jeans, shopping malls, and all these things, all these objects. They conjured that time so specifically for me. I'm sure for lots of other readers too. And they all feel very natural to the book's landscape. And I'm wondering, did you do any research? Were there any shows or films or music that you like spent time with while you were working on the book? Or was it all from memory? Yeah.
I mean, a few things. So with like the specifics of like movies and all that, like I definitely had to double check through the old Google machine and be like, wait, what year did this movie come out? And my editors were really helpful with that too, of like keeping in check, like, wait, we want to keep it in this time period. But a lot of it was from memory. Like I remember going to the theater to see Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. And was that on a date? I don't know. Maybe, maybe I saw that with a boy, maybe not. But I remember that movie, and I remember those kind of movies that used to come out in that time period. And with all of the objects of the book, I mean, I think that's something that teenagers don't really have as much now because they live so much online. That's a whole other conversation, but like objects were kind of everything. Like you had to have the latest pair of Pumas or Skechers or the Tiffany's necklace. You had to have, especially going to a private school where we had uniforms. It was all about like, what backpack did you have? Or like I always had a JanSport. I did have a navy blue JanSport because that was my brother's and I was just like obsessed with it. But most of the girls in my grade had like Louis Vuitton purses as their backpacks, and it's like, first of all, it's not even comfortable. And second of all, why are you taking a $5,000 bag to school, where you're like throwing it on the floor in class and getting pen all over, I'm like, why do you have that kind of money when you're 15, But it was just all about how you accessorized and just the things that you had and your room, like how you decorated your room and like all the tchotchkes that you had and everything. It was just such a big deal. And especially, like I said, having uniforms, then it was like when you weren't in school, your clothes really mattered because it was how you expressed yourself. And I think that that's something that's not lacking, but like that kids don't really have as much today because like there's not like a Tamagotchi that's coming out, or, you know, I know that we still have like every iPhone that gets upgraded and whatever, but there's not like a pressure really. I mean, I know there's like the capitalist pressure from Apple, you know, I hope Apple isn't like watching this, but we love you, Apple, we love it. But like, there's not that pressure of like, if I don't have that phone, I'm not going to be like popular in my school, you know, like, or I'm going to be outcasted. It's like, as long as you have a smartphone, like you're good. You can do what everyone else is doing. And it's actually kind of cool now to kind of be counterculture. Like my brother has a flip phone and I'm like, that is like freaking awesome. Like, you're so cool. Like, because you're not like in it all the time and like so obsessed with, you know, everything that's going on. So I feel like now it's kind of, the tables have turned a little bit, and it's kind of cool to be uncool in a way. It's kind of like, what was that movie? The remake of 21 Jump Street, when like the characters figure out that like, oh, actually, like I was popular in high school, but like now I'm a loser. And now the nerd is like the popular guy, you know, like things have kind of changed a bit, and the emphasis isn't so much placed on that stuff. And I think that's a good thing for sure, you know? Yeah, especially growing up in South Florida, like, I mean, yeah, like the mall was like a number 1 hangout. And I joke with my writing friends, I'm like, okay, I wrote another piece and it's got a mall in it once again. You know, because and I know that that's in your book too, like the mall, it was just like such a place of, you know, of freedom, you know, back to the freedom thing, and a place to walk a lap and express yourself and meet people and go into Spencer's and buy a weird keychain, or, you know, like it was like, yeah, or going to Wet Seal and like steal a thong. And, you know, that's what I did. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, it's just, that was like objects were everything. And, you know,
I remember like, there was a store called Rave, and like they hung all the thongs like meticulously.
Yeah,
I was like, what a fun job that must have been, like hanging all the thongs. Like, we're not hanging them, like just the table will do. And so segueing from thongs, we actually had an audience question come in that did not ask about thongs, but they did say, did you choose this time period because it lent itself to the complexities of the story, or because it was what you know, or both?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Thank you, Scott. I love you, Scott. Me and Scott are good pals. So this, I started just having like, I'm thinking about in therapy too, like when my therapist will always ask me like, what memories have been coming up for you, which, so, I mean, he should be a writing teacher, really, this guy. But thinking about like when I was in grad school, I started having these kind of flashbacky kind of memories to high school, maybe because I was like in a school setting again. And my grad school experience was great. Like, I have friends here that are in this room tonight, you know, that were in my program. Like, it was not the catty version of high school that, you know, I describe in the book, but I think maybe just being back in a school setting, I kind of just started to think about it again. And I think because there was so much, like the main reason that I wanted to write this book was because I felt like so much of my own high school experience was so unresolved. And it felt like I was never really myself. I didn't know who myself was. Like, I didn't really know myself. And I was trying to gain back some power. You know, I was trying to take back that time and make fun of it, make fun of myself as an avatar, make fun of the whole time. And I also, I agree with part of that question that it lent itself to the complexities of the time. You know, it was that kind of like golden time period when we had phones and we had the internet, but it wasn't all encompassing yet. Like, we could still go, like you brought up before, like the away message, like you would actually put up an away message and then go have dinner and like not bring it with you to the table, or you didn't really be thinking about it. Like, you would go back later and be like, oh, who wrote to me? Or like, you know, and usually it was like one person, you know, or like you would spend hours like decorating your away message. I don't know if you remember that. Like, you had to make it like all cool. Yeah. I think that it was in that golden period where we could still get out of it a little bit, but it didn't feel all encompassing, but it was still there. And it was more magical and mysterious to us. And it was, like we talked about before, it was more a way to have more freedom and to express ourselves, but not to like escape and get lost in it. Like I think we do kind of now, the doom scroll and just, personas and like living a life online. We were just kind of at the edge of that and just kind of scratching the surface. And I want, people of all ages to be able to read this and be like, oh my God, I remember that time. Or like, wow, that's crazy. I can't imagine a time like that. When I saw the movie 8th Grade, I was like blown away by, I just love Bo Burnham, and like, this is a plug for Inside basically. But I just also love that movie of 8th Grade because it's really showing you what today's kids are going through in school with the phones, with the social media, just with that kind of anxiety. And we didn't have that. We had anxiety in different ways, but we didn't have, like I said, that all-encompassing internet all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't have the filter.
Yeah.
And we actually, so it's interesting that we're talking about knowing what it was like to be alive, in the early aughts. And this is obviously a novel, so it borrows from real life. Scott also wants to know, what made you decide to move from nonfiction to fiction or fictional nonfiction? So it's kind of the perfect thread.
Yeah. It's a good question, because I know especially my grad school friends know that I was at school for nonfiction. We were talking about that before the reading too. So yeah, while I was in grad school was when I started writing these short stories, and it was called Boca Bitches. And I think some of my friends might remember that. And I was kind of doing it to escape from the memoir a little bit. Anyone that's read my memoir knows that it's kind of deep, heavy subject matter. It's, it was very intense, and I had a very intense experience in grad school writing about it. So I just wanted to write these fun stories and kind of practice my craft, but also try out fiction a little bit. I had never written short story or really anything. And I took a few fiction workshops in school and wanted to kind of test it out. And I wouldn't say that I'm exclusively a fiction writer now either. I like both. I think for long form, I really enjoy writing novels, and I'm working on a new one right now, and I really enjoy it as a long project. But I think with the nonfiction, I really like writing essays too, and I like looking into a subject or looking into one of my parents, or still my brother. I'm never going to stop writing about my brother, or just looking at something within myself and exploring it to the fullest, and really beating all there is out of it, and getting to the bottom of something, or feeling like I'm coming to a realization, where in fiction I feel like I'm able to rewrite the past or re-envision a future, or or just reimagine my life as it was, and maybe areas where, like I said, I wish I could have said something, or I wish I could have been more bold or adventurous, or whatever it is. I can write that, and I can make it a truth. And I wrote this essay for Lit Hub kind of about genre and about all of that. And I say something in there about I'm not creating a fictional world, I am the fictional world. And I once I had that realization, it was just so freeing, and it's made writing just a lot more fun and interesting, and it makes it feel like therapy still. It makes it feel like I'm really getting to the bottom of things. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know, because my therapist will ask me this too. He'll be like, what were you being told in this moment? And what do you wish the message you received was? If in the moment I was getting I'm crazy, I'm worthless, I'm whatever. But I really wish that I had received a different message. It's I can write that now, and I can put that in a story and make it possible.
I love that. It's going back to thinking about magic, it's the magic of writing, one part of the magic of writing, right? Yeah. And I'm wondering, I know we're getting close to time, but would you be willing to share a little bit about what you're working on now, a new novel?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have, and I know we talked about this a little bit before the reading too, and that was fun. Yeah, I am still like pretty obsessed with this idea of turning myself into an avatar, kind of like Philip Rothing myself into all these stories, and having kind of like an eagle eye kind of view in there. And yeah, I've been now thinking back to my college days, and I was in a Jewish sorority in the Midwest. In the still early-ish, 2000s. And yeah, pretty obsessed with trying to now tell that story and really dive back into that time and, the friendships that I had and the relationships that I had. And also this recurring theme of anxiety and really diving into that a little bit more than I did in the Brittany's, where I kind of like just brushed the surface with it and never really like labeled it or named it. It's definitely getting a closer look and a very more tuned in lens in this next one. But I'm still writing essays too. I'm still writing. I'm working on some stuff about my parents and their lives. And I have some pieces coming out in the fall with magazines about my mom and my dad. And I'm going to Sewanee this summer for a nonfiction workshop. So that's really exciting. And so, yeah, I'm like I like that you brought up before the doubleness, because I am like the definition of that. I'm still like, I want the nonfiction, I want the fiction. I like all of it. So there'll be more of both, hopefully someday.
That's incredible. I love that you toggle between them, because I think there's a lot that both forms can teach each other. I mean, I always think it's interesting when writers move between forms, but I think there's always something to carry back, not only from reading across form, but also writing between them. So I'm excited for the next one when it joins us on this side.
Yeah.
So we did have one more question from Scott, who wanted to know. Oh, Scott wanted to know.
Oh, I can answer this really quick. Yeah. We talked about this before the reading too. Yeah, I haven't worked on those pieces in a while, but he was in that workshop, the translation workshop, where I did the Catullus stories. I told you about that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe those will make a reappearance one day, but they've been in a dark folder somewhere for a while. But those were so fun to write. That was such a great class too. Yeah.
But hopefully those join us too.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right.
Awesome.
There's Maggie. Hi, Maggie.
And if it's okay, that's a wrap on our presentation. Thank you so much to Thank you so much to our guests and to all of you who tuned in this evening. We greatly appreciate everyone's time and your support of independent bookstores. Support our bookstore and our authors and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click the green purchase button that reads the Brittany's directly below the viewer screen. You can buy an object. Books are objects. That's relevant to what you were talking about.
It's so pretty too. Just,
If you'd like regular updates on our upcoming events, make sure to follow us on Crowdcast and subscribe to our newsletter. Have a safe night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Happy
thank you
Brittany. Thank you so much, Maggie.